Talking to yourself, huh? I always knew you'd come to it, Mike.
Come to what?
Silly.
Time to Kill was the seventh and final of the Lloyd Nolan Michael Shayne detective films. And you know I was sad to get to the end of the series, but hey, I've reviewed all of them and here we are. Now the story here with this movie is that private detective Michael Shayne is back, and he's been hired by an old widow to find a valuable coin, known as a brasher doubloon, which this widow believes was stolen from her by her daughter-in-law. Well, this was an entertaining and brief Michael Shayne detective story, and I'll give a summary of the film, spoiler-free, and then offer some closing thoughts. And I do have to apologize for the video quality of the clips used. This film was a hard one to find, and I used the best I could find, so more on that when I wrap up the review with some closing thoughts. Well, the film opens up with Detective Michael Shayne, played by Lloyd Nolan. Now, he has been hired by this feisty old widow, Mrs. Murdoch, played by actress Ethel Griffiths, and he has to find a valuable coin, the brasher doubloon, which she seems convinced that her daughter-in-law, Linda, has stolen. So she wants this coin, and she also wants her son back, kind of wanting Shayne to do all of this and arrange for a divorce of her son. Now, Shayne takes an interest in this case and also an interest in Mrs. Murdoch's secretary, Merle Davis, played by actress Heather Angel. Caught her not long ago in Hitchcock's film Lifeboat. Now, she seems nervous and flustered, working for this batty old woman. Well, Shayne starts his investigation by getting in contact with coin dealer Elisha Washburn, actor Lester Sharp. Now, he was the one who had tried earlier to buy this doubloon. And then Shayne follows this up by visiting with Lois Morney, played by actress Sheila Bromley, who was one of Linda's friends, and finds her with character Lou Venter, actor Ralph Bird, who is sort of her boy toy. In this, Lois flirts with Shayne a little bit, but he doesn't find out much about Linda. So Linda is the woman that the widow wants him to find, remember? So Lou returns and gets an attitude with Shayne and ends up getting pushed into the pool.
Now, look, finding her is just a matter of time, but you could be an awful lot of help to me if you wanted to.
Maybe you could make me want to, if there weren't so many people around.
Oh, you mean to say we're not alone?
All right, wise guy, on your way.
No, it's a very funny thing, but sometimes I have little head noises, Sounds just like voices.
I said get out.
I heard it again right there.
Oh, don't.
One hand, did you see that?
Well, I guess there's no use my sticking around here any longer.
Not as long as you have another woman on your mind.
No. Well, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So Shayne continues his investigation, sees he's being tailed, and stops the guy, figures out who he is. It's George Phillips, played by actor Ted Hecht, who says he's a private detective also working for Linda, and agrees to meet with Shayne later to talk about the case. So Shayne goes back, meets with the coin dealer Washburn again, and asks more about the coin, and then sticks around and secretly overhears Washburn make a call to George Phillips, leading Shayne to see that he's working with him. So Shayne then heads over to Phillips' place to talk to him about the case, but with the help of an apartment manager finds out that he's been murdered. The police lieutenant arrives. It's Richard Lane playing Lieutenant Breeze, and they question the drunk guy across the hall who owned the gun that I guess had shot and killed him, but he pleads innocence, claiming somebody else had the gun and shot it. Shayne asks if they had left, and apparently they were out for dinner that night, and someone else had apparently slipped in and killed Phillips. Shayne then calls and checks his messages and finds out that Linda Conquest wants to meet with him. Linda Conquest. Ugh, gosh, some of these character names. Anyhow, Shayne goes to the Idle Valley Club and meets with Linda, played here by a lovely actress Doris Merrick. She wants to know what he wants, and he tells her that Mrs. Murdoch has hired him and wants her out of the picture, basically, and of course Linda wants none of that. Now he also wants to know about the doubloon, and she tells him she doesn't have it. So Linda leaves and performs some of her musical numbers, and the manager arrives, Alexander Morney. He's played by actor Morris Ancrum. I've seen him in other films I know I've reviewed on this channel, and anyhow, he's friends with Shayne and wants to know what his interest is and what his interest in Linda is. He explains the case, and it's around here that Lois and Lou from earlier arrive, and Lou slugs Shayne in the face, and Morny slugs him back and sends him on the floor. So it's around here that the character Leslie Murdoch arrives, played by actor James Say. He's the son of the wealthy widow, and he wants to see his wife Linda, who's performing at the club, but Morny, who's the club manager, won't allow it and kicks him out. So Linda finishes her song and later gives Shayne a number that she found from Philip's wallet, a paper for Lou Venter describing what looks like chemicals. So Shayne brings Linda home, still suspicious of her involvement. And on the way out, Shayne is almost run down, but who would want to do this? So back to Mrs. Murdoch the next day. She's digging into a big piece of beef. Now Shayne calls, telling her that Linda is out of the picture and that he's ready to continue, but Mrs. Murdoch just kind of casually says that she's finished with him, that she had misplaced the doubloon herself, and everything was fine. So Shayne is, of course, annoyed about this and angrily types up his invoice. Now, I'm trying to summarize the film as best I can, but this was it was sort of all over the place, a lot going on and a very short amount of movie time. But anyhow, Shayne gets a package in the mail, and it's the doubloon. Very weird. So Shayne heads back to meet with Washburn, but turns out he was killed by somebody. Now, the investigator is there, Lieutenant Breeze, and he's suspicious of Shayne, always kind of showing up at these places. But he reveals to Shayne that Washburn was hit on the head and killed. But by whom? Well, Shayne goes back to talk to Mrs. Murdoch again and talks to her about this doubloon. Leslie was hiding and listening in, and he enters. He's angry at Shayne's persistence and admits that he stole it to use as collateral for gambling debts. And Mrs. Murdoch is really upset, orders Shayne to go, and starts throwing things at him. Well, Shayne learns that a dental supplies company has been sending Venter materials that he could have been using to make counterfeit coins. So he returns to his office and meets with Linda, but it's around here that the character Merle shows up, hysterical that she had killed Lou Venter. So this is the guy earlier that Shayne had pushed into the pool. She confesses that she has been sending Venter money for years, apparently related to blackmail, but won't answer what the reason for the blackmail was. Shayne sees the gun that apparently was used to kill and can pretty much tell that it wasn't even fired. So he heads back to Venter's to investigate. Well, it appears Venter is dead, and trying to summarize this one has been quite a challenge, and honestly, with only 10 minutes left, I think I'll just stop here. I won't give away the whodunit ending. You can try to watch this one yourself and make sense of it. I actually watched it twice, and it still left me a little bit confused. But this was the final Lloyd Nolan Michael Shayne mystery, so, do yourself a favor, go and check it out. Now, let me offer some closing thoughts. Time to Kill was the last 20th Century Fox Michael Shayne film. Now, Fox was planning to make 2 more pictures in the series, but eventually dropped the series so Lloyd Nolan could move on to other projects. Now, in 1945, PRC would purchase the rights to the character of Michael Shayne from 20th Century Fox and would begin its own series with Hugh Beaumont as the detective. Wow, Hugh Beaumont. Wally, Beaver, what are you boys doing here at a murder scene? Well, actually, I'm curious to review these on the channel, so I've got them on my list, and I'll get to see how they are. PRC films also tend to be in the public domain, so I can use clips without the dreaded copyright claim. Aha! Now, as far as general thoughts about the film, I thought it was an okay detective story. I guess I found it a little bit short, considering the large number of characters involved, and it was almost like too much was going on in too short of a time span. One thread of the story was about this lost coin. Then you have people winding up dead. And then you have different characters who, for different reasons, seem to be angry at Shayne's character. And it was just a little too much to keep up with. I think, I had a similar issue with the previous film, Just Off Broadway. And, again, I gave this one a couple watches. It sort of made sense eventually. But there were plenty of twists and turns along the way as you try to figure out what's going on. Maybe not the easiest film to follow. Now, Lloyd Nolan is always fun to watch, though, as the gumshoe working his way through solving the crimes with some silly antics along the way. So before I close this, let me just give a few thoughts, kind of an overview of the series as a whole. Now, there were 7 films in the series. Some are definitely better than others, and that's just my opinion. But in each of the films, Lloyd Nolan still shines. It just makes the movie great. Even if you can't necessarily follow the story, or too much is going on, or the film is a little short, he's always the highlight as a very funny, entertaining detective that frequently doesn't play by the rules, doesn't seem to take his role too seriously, but yet always does his detective work and manages to pull it all together by the end of the film. So there were 7 films in the Lloyd Nolan run as Micahel Shayne. The first film, Micahel Shayne, Private Detective, was a great beginning in 1940. The film was based on Brett Holliday's novel, The Private Practice of Micahel Shayne. I thought this was a great introduction to the character, featuring Lloyd Nolan and his interactions with Marjorie Weaver. They would be together in other films as well. And, it was fun to watch. I thought this kicked off things really well. And I'm just going to give a quick recap of these films. I'm not going to dig into the detail. I've actually reviewed all 7 of these films, so I'll try and put a link to these somewhere in the video. I don't know how, but I've watched them all, and they're all great in their own way. Now, the second film, Sleepers West from 1941, was based on the novel Sleepers East by Frederick Nebel. And it was a really compelling mystery set on a train that I felt was one of the best of the series. It was a fun romantic subplot involving the lovely actress Mary Beth Hughes, and it was just an interesting mystery going on. And I like kind of the enclosed feeling of being stuck on a train and having to solve a mystery in a very limited, confined spot. And I thought this was a great film as well. Third in the series was Dressed to Kill from 1941. This was based on the novel The Dead Take No Bows by Richard Burke. And this is just me speaking personally, but this was my favorite of the series, of the 7 films, if I had to pick one. I thought it had a great mystery that Shayne investigates. Opening at the very beginning with the victims he finds at a dinner table wearing the animal mask. And it's just, I think, a great introduction to the film, and I loved seeing Shayne do his gumshoe investigating, trying to figure out, how could a gunshot have been fired at the table and so on. It also features lovely actress Mary Beth Hughes again, and also a brief cameo by Manton Moreland, one of my favorite comedians. So there's a lot going for this film. I thought it was a really good story. A lot of the things I love in a good detective murder mystery. So it's probably my favorite of all of the 7. Now, the fourth film was Blue, White, and Perfect from 1942, based on the serial story Blue, White, and Perfect by Borden Chase. Now, this one was great as well. It's a story involving World War II and diamond smugglers, with half of the story taking place in the city and half on a cruise ship. So there's plenty of mystery and suspense. I think George Reeves shows up as well. It's just really a great film. Now, the 5th in the series was The Man Who Wouldn't Die from 1942, based on the novel No Coffin for the Corpse by Clayton Rawson. I enjoyed this story. I like the idea of the character that was supposedly dead and coming back, maybe sort of a supernatural spin. And the mystery involved that Shayne has to solve here. Is this guy coming back from the dead? What's going on? Nolan is paired up here again with Marjorie Weaver, and they always make a great team together. And, with these last 3, maybe they aren't the best in the series, maybe they're a little bit shorter, but I think they do have their merit, and I still enjoyed them just the same. Now, the 6th film, Just Off Broadway, came out in 1942, and this was the court-themed film, with Nolan again paired up with Marjorie Weaver. He's trying to solve a case. Now, even though Shayne is in a sequestered jury, he manages to sneak away and solve the mystery, and then even does some lawyer antics at the end. Okay, this isn't one that you do a legal analysis of because it's kind of silly, but it was still a fun film, and I enjoyed it just the same. And then finally, the series concluded with The Time to Kill for 1942 that I just did the review of. And, despite my gripes about the video quality, I still enjoyed it, and I thought this was a good final outing of Lloyd Nolan as Micahel Shayne. And while I'm sad to finish the series, knowing that there are more films out there with the Micahel Shayne character, with actors like Hugh Beaumont, I'm happy, and I'll be checking those out in the future. So let me wrap up this one. Time to Kill shows a date of 1942, but was actually released in early 1943, according to IMDb. And it was the 7th and last of the Micahel Shayne mysteries produced by Fox that starred Lloyd Nolan as Brett Holliday's detective character. It's a short film. There's a lot going on. Story can be a little tricky to follow, but you know what? Lloyd Nolan always makes it enjoyable. And again, good luck trying to find a decent copy. You know, maybe there's one out there. And it's a good film. It is worth checking out. And to close, without really giving any spoilers, here's the final scene of the film that I just loved. And I thought it was suitable, as Lloyd Nolan basically closes out the series with breaking the fourth wall. What a way to make an exit.
Say, how long are you going to be in Reno?
Just 6 weeks.
That's swell. I'll give you a ring the moment you get back to town.
You will. I may hold you to that.
Hold me to what?
I have a first-class witness in Lieutenant Breeze that you're going to marry me. Driver, Union Depot, please.
Hey, wait a minute! You can't do that to me! Or can she?